Hello, everybody. And I love you. How are you? Hope you're doing well on this Sunday. So, welcome to my YouTube channel, whomever may be viewing now and in the future now. As some of you who have been listening to the God is Study groups, which is located um, under the live stream content, we have been discussing, as you know, the topic of harmony over the past 2 weeks. And as a means to connect with the universal harmonics of play, we were given the homework to practice meditation every day of the week. So I'm making a video based on an experience that I had during meditation where I received a message about suffering and freedom. So here's the message. Are you ready? Our limited perception of self is what causes all of suffering. And the key to freedom is aligning with the cosmic self. So I titled this video, The Cosmic Will versus Self-Will, the Key to Liberation. Welcome to my channel where we discuss how to connect with the flow of spirit through coming to believe that a power greater than the limited identity of the ego, say that 3 times, could restore us to sanity. And then by turning our will and our lives over to the loving care of God, as we understood God, finally allows us to let go of the need to steer every single thing in our life all on our own or by another. We so often take actions based on another individual's perspective of what we think they think we should do. Please, I ask you, do not ask another person to tell you what to do, because the answer will always be different based on who you ask and when you ask. It's also a really good way to create resentments in our lives, isn't it? Because we hand our power over and wait for the other person to make that first move on our account. And they never do, of course. You see, humans are conditional, meaning subject to one or more conditions or requirements being met, made, or granted on certain terms. God's will for us, on the other hand, is unconditional, meaning not subject to any conditions. In other words, it's reliable, it's pure. Hashtag unbiased, unlike life driven by the ego, which ultimately leads to a life of suffering. How can we know the difference between God's will and self-will? Okay, so we can ask ourselves this question. Is this a self-seeking, selfish desire, or is this what God really wants for me, for us? God's will is defined as the actions taken or words spoken based on love, selflessness, honesty, and purity of mind. God's will is based in unconditional love. The antidote, you see, to align with God's love is humility. In the 12-step program, the AA 12 and 12 confirms this assertion that the attainment of greater humility is really the foundation principle of each of AA's 12 steps. Self-will involves self-assertion and ego-based motives. What will it do for me? Versus, what is God directing me to do that serves the whole, the collective? God's will always looks to restore and unite the collective, not just the individual. Self-will is the action taken or words spoken with the ego and the determination to have one's own way, to get what is most desired, and at times, no matter what the cost. The limited identity is cultivated as when we're young, as youngsters. When our caregivers or educators um, teach us the concept of punishment and reward, they call the shots on what is so-called acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable within society. Therefore, our identity really is influenced by external factors which are conditional, impermanent. Because impermanence is just the nature of our 3D material reality. This is what causes suffering. Who I am, who you are, changes based on who I think you believe I should be. It's the ultimate codependent relationship. And, we'll live this way until we see that society is driven by money and ill-imposed power. We become imposters in a way, driven by this ideal kind of archetype thought of by a few who impact the collective. And this is what we call the false self. To thine own self be true. The false self is an artificial persona that people create very early on in life to avoid rejection, isn't it? And social norms set the standard for what's acceptable. We long to unite with spirit, but continue to look for it in the finite world. We're basically addicts looking for completion and satisfaction in all the wrong places and faces. In the mere attempt, really, to solve this crisis, we cling to the personality, to the identity, who I am, who you are. We cling to others' opinions in an attempt to validate our sense of self-worth. We buy things, we conquer and colonize other countries. Really, until we become aware that everything we've been searching for is within the infinite power of the spirit, life is going to be freaking miserable. So, Eckhart Tolle said, the ego identifies with having, but its satisfaction in having is a relatively shallow and short-lived one. It's unsustainable. Concealed within it remains a deep-seated sense of dissatisfaction, of incompleteness, of not enough, I don't have enough yet, by which the ego really means I am not enough. As we have seen, having the concept of ownership is a fiction created by the identity of the ego itself, to give itself solidity and make itself stand out, make itself special from everything else. Here's the truth. Nothing is special apart from something else, because we're interdependent. Really, we are unique expressions of a universal oneness. And finally, when we humble ourselves enough and admit that all is one, we're going to be in this place of segregation. We segregate ourselves from one another. When we do that over and over again, that becomes insanity. Here's the first step to change: the recognition that our lives have become unmanageable. That's the first step in the 12 steps. We finally surrender coming to believe that a power greater than the limited identity could restore us to sanity. We acknowledge and accept a higher power, source, creator, God, or otherwise, and admit that only this higher power can remove, you fill in the blank. So, the acknowledgement that higher power will remove our addictions requires handing our defects up to a loving God who will, in a sense, relieve us of the bondage to the self. This, I can do it all by myself. So, God relieves us of the bondage to the self. With that, we ask God or Source to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt, so that I may better do thy will. Therefore, God's intention for us is that we be relieved of that which separates us from wholeness. We yearn to unify with what is limitless, infinite, requiring us to really connect with what is beyond our physical nature. We turn to what is limitless when we make conscious contact with God by turning within to the space that unites us all. The space we are born from and will eventually return to. When our identity becomes cosmic, a major internal shift occurs, part of which is a desire to be of selfless service to all, as well as walking in divine love. Throughout Jesus' earthly ministry, he showed his love for others by blessing and serving the poor, the distressed, the sick. And he told his disciples, "This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you." And that, my friends, is infinite. That was the message that I wanted to share with you this evening, and I'm going to close up with a prayer. So bless us with love, O merciful God, that we may love as you love, that we may show patience, tolerance, kindness, caring, and love to all. Because I can see myself in you, and you can see yourself in me. I am taking your own best interest into my account, and my own best interest into your account. That's true love. I wish everybody would be well, and I will have more videos coming out as I am inspired to do so. And in the meantime, we are complete.